When his dog fell unexpectedly sick, a homeless man named Martin was tossed into a whirlpool of anxiety. The distress exhibited by his pet was far from a slightly upset stomach. It was clear that his dog urgently needed professional medical attention. Nevertheless, upon his arrival at a local pet clinic with his beloved dog, they were surprisingly and abruptly turned away. The denial of help left Martin puzzled and shattered, struggling to understand why the veterinarian rebuffed their request for assistance. Before we continue, if you're new here, feel free to support us by hitting like, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell to never miss our stories. On a damp Monday afternoon, Martin, who had been taking a short nap beneath a bridge that acted as their makeshift residence, woke up to an unsettling sight. Instead of Toby's accustomed active, tail-wagging persona, he discovered his 9-year-old dog lying on his side, whining in severe pain. Witnessing Toby in such torment took Martin's breath away and left him with a heavy heart. Despite their years of dealing with the austere reality of being homeless, where Toby had generally held up well, this was a startling change. Seeing his normally resilient comrade in such a fragile state hinted that something was seriously amiss. Martin approached Toby, taking careful steps, and held Toby in his arms, feeling his shudders and listening to his heightened cries of pain. Concerned by Toby's condition, Martin wondered if his dog had eaten something harmful or had contracted an acute stomach disease. All his thoughts pointed to the critical need for urgent professional medical help for Toby. So with resolve and determination, Martin lifted his dog in his arms and headed out to find assistance as evening was settling. Asking the local populace, Martin learned that the nearest pet clinic was just a few blocks away. Bearing Toby in his arms, he quickened his pace. People passing by alerted him that the clinic was nearly about to shut down for the day, ramping up his urgency. After a desperate hurry, Martin reached the clinic as luck would have it, just in time. The clinic still had its lights on, and the reception desk was vacant, which made him let out a sigh of relief, but he was still racked with worry. Martin rapped on the clinic's glass window with his available hand, soliciting immediate care. Regardless of his unkempt look and the possibility of prejudice due to his homeless state, he stayed focused on Toby's well-being. This occurrence emphasizes the challenges faced by people in unstable circumstances, especially when trying to access necessary services such as animal health care. It further underscores the profound bond and unwavering dedication that homeless persons often hold for their pets, who are usually their source of undying friendship and affection. In challenging moments, Martin often found himself grappling with feelings of discomfort around people with whom he wasn't familiar, especially in enclosed places. However, the deserted environment of the veterinary clinic helped alleviate some of his initial apprehension. At first, his gentle knocking on the clinic's window didn't yield any response, and his frustration began to grow. Martin then began rhythmically thumping more aggressively, causing the glass to shiver noticeably. He hoped this more assertive method would engage the vet, as the deviation from his ordinary calmness was motivated by the anguished whimpers of his dog Toby, cradled in his arms. Directly afterward, the vet emerged from her private office into the hallway. Clutching Toby tightly, Martin signaled urgently for assistance. The vision of the pet doctor offered him a wave of comfort. No animal doctor would refuse to help a pet in dire physical condition, Martin thought. Regardless if the animal's owner was without a home, such as himself, he sought to console Toby, whispering soothing words. "Assurance of recovery is there, my friend. This lady will bring you relief." But to his surprise, the situation became tense once the vet approached the entrance. She opened the door slightly, her body stiffening and her grip on the knob tight, as though she intended to prevent Martin from entering. Her demeanor was chilly as she asked with an edge, "What do you need?" Taken aback by her frosty demeanor, Martin tried to voice out Toby's evident distress and discomfort. Despite aspiring that his explanation would acquire their entry, the vet's response was alarmingly nonchalant. She outright refused Martin and Toby's admission to the clinic, directing them to exit and never to return. Her words were stern and irrevocable, leaving Martin deeply perturbed. Before Martin even had the chance to reconsider his thoughts or respond, he was promptly dismissed. She slammed the vet clinic's door in his face, The sound of the locks shifting into place was a clear indication of refusal. She closed the office blinds, leaving Martin and his sickly Toby on the outside, completely alone, deprived of the help they were earnestly in need of. In the heart of the bustling metropolis, a bewildered and dispirited Martin found himself, cradling his precious Toby within his arms, committed to providing him solace. He attempted to offer his trembling Toby as much consolation as he could muster amidst their dire situation. Martin couldn't believe the cruelty he had just witnessed. It was unfathomable that a veterinary officer, whose duty it was to look after animals, could dismiss a distressed pet just because the owner didn't have a home. Martin couldn't understand why his inability to pay for services or his unkempt appearance could have influenced such unfeeling behavior from the vet. He left the clinic with a wound, shocked by the discrimination he had experienced and anxious about Toby's well-being. As he walked away, Martin saw the vet sneak a look from behind the hastily closed blinds. Consumed by sorrow, he promised never to return or see her again. "It's just us, Toby. It doesn't seem like anyone will assist us," he murmured to his loyal dog. Despite the bleak situation, Martin was resolved that this wasn't the end. They slowly returned to their makeshift dwelling under a bridge, far from an ideal location for an unwell dog, but their only haven that felt like home. Once they settled down, Martin did whatever he could to make Toby comfortable. He covered his trembling friend with a blanket and shared every scrap of food he could get. The future looked grim for the elderly man, without a home and his canine companion. Yet a hint of hope appeared a few days later. When 65-year-old Martin woke up and got ready for another tough day near the river, he noticed something peculiar. A tiny box unfamiliar to him sat next to where he slept. With caution, he approached this peculiar object and inspected it closely. Not seeing anyone around, he gently opened the box with trembling hands, his heart beating faster as he explored its contents. Inside, he found various medications, including special antibiotics and remedies to treat stomach and bowel problems in dogs. His eyes welled up with tears as he realized someone had gone out of their way to help Toby. The explanation that appeared most plausible to him was that the vet repented and had stealthily sent these life-saving medications. As he looked through the content of this timely package, he found a tiny piece of paper under the packets of medications with a simple instruction on how to give the doses and conveying well wishes for Toby's quick recovery, a stark contrast to their previous encounter. This surprising act of gentleness restored Martin's belief in the good in people. Touched, he held Toby closer, his heart light with a newfound optimism. Feeling a renewed sense of hope and gratefulness, Martin imagined that compassion might still exist in the world as he embarked on attending to Toby with the unexpected support he had received. Upon examining the letter he found accompanying the medicine, Martin had his suspicions confirmed. It was the same vet whom they had recently been denied entry to her clinic. The letter stated the medicine should assist Toby in recovering and oddly instructed them to steer clear of her office for their own good. Faced with the vet's perplexing conduct, Martin was left confused. Why would an individual who showed zero interest in him and his pet go out of their way to help them, especially given how hard it was to find a single individual in a busy city? It was peculiar that she would make such an effort. Toby began to show improvement almost immediately after taking the pills. His shivering ceased that very day, and in merely 2 days his illness appeared to have vanished altogether. Seeing Toby's tail wagging again brought Martin immense happiness, and he felt an immense sense of gratitude towards the vet, despite their initial negative exchange. Realizing they were not welcome at the vet's office, Martin felt compelled to thank her in person, now that Toby had recovered. Amid the relief of Toby's recovery, Martin took a stroll around the town center. Despite their previous unpleasant encounters, he believed the vet deserved to know the profound impact of her help. Just before closing time, he arrived at the vet's office, hoping to see fewer people and expecting a friendlier reception this time. But just as he was about to knock, he was taken aback by the sight of a man with dark hair appearing beside the vet from some back room. This startled Martin and made Toby growl softly, a reaction he had never seen before, hinting at the threat of something bad. This only added to the increasing unease and curiosity. Looking through the window and trying to see more clearly, Martin sensed something was significantly wrong. He quickly sought shelter behind a stone column outside the clinic, pressing himself against it to stay unnoticed. From this hidden position, he continued to observe, his heartbeat racing as he tried to make sense of the unsettling situation. As he cautiously shifted closer to the corner, trying to decipher the unfolding scenario, his gaze scanned across the brightly lit inside of the vet's clinic. The radiant light made the windows appear like television screens juxtaposed against the dim night sky. Just outside, Martin noticed yet another individual, dressed noticeably in a swanky dark suit, an odd sight in the otherwise casual ambiance. Adorned with sophisticated attire, this man was engrossed in an intense, clearly one-sided conversation with the vet. The man, dressed impeccably in a suit, took charge of the discourse, his voice flourishing authoritatively. The entire situation broadcasts an unsettling aura, filling Martin with a growing sense of unease. It was clear that the woman veterinarian was under some obligation to partake in the discussion. Her body language, with roots of discomfort and tension visible, projected a feeling of distress as the man in the suit dominated their interaction. To emphasize his words, he forcefully jabbed a finger towards her midsection, which only further added a threatening undertone to his actions. Feeling concerned for the vet, Martin strained to discern the harsh words echoing from the clinic. He overheard, "This needs caution. Nobody should find out," as the man continued to dictate. Intimidated, the woman vet could only respond with anxious nods of agreement. Outside, Martin's worry was mirrored in Toby, his small, shaggy canine companion, who became alert, sensing his owner's distress. Toby began a series of loud barks, piercing the night silence like a stark warning. The sudden clamor attracted the attention of the man in the suit, who quickly wrapped up his conversation and briskly made his way towards the entrance, forcefully swinging the door open. As the man inspected his surroundings, Martin made a hasty retreat behind a large metallic box, managing to shield himself and Toby just in time. He held his breath, gently covering Toby's mouth to ensure his silence. The man's gaze darted around the immediate vicinity, eyes scanning potential areas of concealment, but finding nothing significant enough to raise suspicion, resulting in him retreating into the clinic. Martin and Toby remained hidden, hearts pounding with adrenaline as they waited for the man to finally exit. Late into the night hours, the man finally emerged from the back of the clinic, disappearing into the encompassing shadows. Feeling somewhat relieved, Martin continued to stay put. Disturbed by the spine-chilling events, Martin's concern was directed towards the well-being of the woman vet, who had consistently been kind to him and Toby. A mysterious figure had emerged, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. The sleek, obsidian vehicle with darkened windows waited ominously in the shadowy alley behind what seemed to be an otherwise ordinary clinic, giving the location an air of suspicion. As the car sped off, its tires producing a loud, screeching sound against the concrete, Martin was convinced that something sinister was in play. The man had carelessly left the back door of the clinic slightly ajar, an oversight that Martin found too intriguing to overlook. Guided by a sympathetic man without a home and his devoted canine, Martin intentionally neared the partly open door to glance within the animal hospital. As he entered, a heartbreaking scene met his eyes. The hospital's animal doctor, a lady, was nestled on the ground, racked with sobs, trying to minimize her movements to prevent scaring others. Martin moved closer, while his dog, Toby, had other ideas. Bursting with energy, Toby sprinted into the hospital, bound upon the anguished lady, and delivered affectionate hugs and warm licks in an attempt to comfort her. Miraculously, his actions coaxed a faint grin on her tear-streaked face as she looked up and made eye contact with the apprehensive Martin. Initially, her face held a look of dread, but it eased as she recognized Martin inside her animal hospital. "I had asked you not to come here," she declared in a firm tone, a reproach she had delivered before. Martin, who had bristled at these words before, chose to let it pass this time. Rather than answering, he simply approached the teary-eyed animal doctor and inquired with genuine empathy and kindness, "Are you okay, ma'am?" The animal doctor admitted she was struggling, with hardships too significant to handle by herself. Yet she was hesitant to involve others due to her concern for their safety. Martin had already deduced as much. Previous shouting and her streaming tears were direct indications of her distress. Despite being oblivious to the entirety of the issue she faced, his question led her to scrutinize him closely, evaluating his facial expression and demeanor to ascertain if she could confide in him about her precarious situation. Initially wary and fearful about plunging another into her predicaments, the animal doctor discovered something about Martin's calming demeanor that slowly earned her trust. Toby's incessant wagging tail and attempts to offer kisses to her face during their conversation also helped to diffuse the room's stressful ambiance. In time, her stern look and rigid posture relaxed, and she revealed the full magnitude of her predicament to Martin. Noticeably quaking, she rose, determined to reveal everything to Martin with a composed yet resolute demeanor. She revealed her identity as Dr. Emily Hart, who had been the owner of the animal hospital for over 20 years. She unraveled the chain of events that culminated in the unsettling incident, laying the foundation for a revelation that could threaten their safety. Martin confessed that he had been observing the hospital and had noticed the disturbing incident through the windows. Martin listened keenly as Emily narrated her interactions with an individual who at first appeared to be a regular customer. However, this person began appearing every day, often after work hours. Emily's tone was laced with desperation and urgency as she discussed her concerns about the individual's transition from a casual attendee to a worrisome presence. She mentioned his intentions to be nothing short of evil. Emily talked about how this individual soon cemented his place as a threat, proceeding beyond their usual business interactions to reveal his sinister motives. Strikingly, he had disturbing amounts of personal information about Emily. Details about her family, knowledge about her spouse, comprehensive information about her children, and even details regarding her home location and her children's school schedules. Emily was terrified by these events, and she was reduced to tears as she shared this information with Martin. She voiced her concerns that if she didn't fulfill his demands, her family could be in danger. Martin was promptly interested, and he asked for specifics on what the man wanted. Cutting straight to the chase, Emily explained that he wanted drugs from her. Martin was surprised and asked, "Drugs?" Emily then specified that contrary to common assumption, veterinary clinics are often targeted due to their stock of controlled substances, such as morphine, various uncommon antibiotics, and other particular medicines. These substances, Emily elaborated, are not only high-priced, but also relatively simple for wrongdoers to sell. She further explained that the man was involved in a drug cartel and had coerced her into procuring large batches of these substances. For a vet clinic, the supervision for drug procurement tends to be quite lax. Her clinic had inadvertently become the perfect front for this criminal's maneuvers. The routine was the same: more prescriptions each day, and the man would turn up to collect them. Emily stressed the explicit threats the man made against her family, even once revealing the firearm he planned to utilize to ensure his demands were met. Acknowledging how critical Emily's situation was, they promptly started formulating a plan to safeguard Emily and her family. The severity of Emily's plight took Martin by surprise, making him genuinely understand her hesitance in seeking help. He was aware that he couldn't solve the dilemma on his own, and he consequently advised reaching out to the police for their expertise and backup. Conversely, Emily was terrified at the thought of worsening the situation and raising the profile of the villainous entities involved. Feeling boxed in, but mildly reassured by communicating her predicament to Martin, Emily was conscious of the risks associated with involving the authorities. Her anxiety heightened at the thought of notifying the police, which might aggravate the man in the suit, potentially jeopardizing her loved ones. Martin, comprehending her trepidations, insisted that enduring the current state of things was unacceptable. "You can't persist in this way of life," he stated firmly. An older gentleman living on the street, observing their disturbing conversation, came forward to offer Emily sympathetic words. His unexpected yet calming presence helped alleviate her worries. As the evening fell, Emily, escorted by Martin and her faithful dog Toby, proceeded toward the local police precinct, resolved to seek help. Upon their arrival, the pair immediately turned heads. Martin's disheveled looks were in stark contrast to the station's formal ambiance. Emily, noticeably upset, stayed by him, brushing away tears now and then. The duty officers, noting the spectacle, grew suspicious and questioned if Martin was causing Emily trouble, promptly dispelling the notions. Emily reassured them that Martin was a comrade as well as her protector. "He's an angel in human form and should be treated as such," she stated with certainty. Consequently, they sat down with the law enforcement officers and narrated Emily's horrifying experiences. The account was shocking, revolving around a large-scale illicit substance operation, and deeply affected everyone in the room. Martin, even though familiar with the tale, was visibly emotional, his eyes filled with tears. The gentleman who had tailed them to the station underscored the necessity for swift action. The officers swiftly assumed responsibility for the situation, confident in their ability to tackle such severe issues. They started devising a strategy to secure Emily and her family, realizing the crucial nature of the threat looming over them. Emily was aware of the routine followed by the man in a suit, the chief antagonist in her ordeal. He made regular visits to the same medical facility every day, adhering strictly to a timetable. Armed with this insight, the police and the trio dedicated the entire day to laying a trap. They opted to keep the clinic running as per its usual working hours to avoid arousing any doubt. Throughout the day, Emily carried on with her job, assisting patrons with their pet needs, while bravely maintaining a facade. As her workday neared an end, law enforcement had assumed their posts, ready to enact the protocol they had developed jointly. Every participant was optimistic that their combined endeavors would bring a successful resolution to the hazardous situation Emily was in. The moment had arrived to set their strategy in motion. Emily, despite her intense nerves, was set to terminate this frightening episode. Luckily, her coworker Martin had been there throughout the day, extending much-needed emotional aid. His soothing utterances and constant presence were a continual source of comfort. He remained in a secluded room, prepared to offer encouragement whenever Emily's feelings of anxiety began to mount. As the day concluded and the last patron exited, it was time to spring the meticulously crafted trap laid out by the police. The officers were strategically dispersed in poorly lit offices at the back of the establishment, encircling the pharmaceutical room, a stop that the criminal was expected to make during his trespass. As the hour struck 6, the clinic's rear door opened, with Emily by then situated in a corridor, silently whispering to herself, "It's time," just moments later. A man attired in a suit entered the clinic, veering straight toward his intended destination without hesitation. He removed his shades as he neared Emily and inquired, "I'm here to pick up my package, Emily. Is it ready?" Emily gave a nod and answered with a courteous smile, aiming to keep the man oblivious to the impending happenings. She led him into the pharmaceutical room, a place he had been visiting frequently over the last couple of days. This visit, however, was about to take a different route. Upon entering the pharmaceutical room, Emily turned on the slide switches. She had readied the room the previous night, ensuring all the medications were in their usual spots. The man in the suit walked in, smiling confidently in anticipation of another uneventful collection. He boldly reached out for the boxes, but as he did, Emily swiftly retreated, closed the room's entrance, and secured it from the outside. From behind the closed door, the man's irate outburst could be heard. What's happening?" he bellowed, violently attempting to kick the door down. After his second attempt, the door gave way, but instead of facing Emily, he met the stern gazes of 5 police officers standing ready with their weapons drawn. In a matter of a few seconds, the man was subdued, held down, and taken into police control. From her secure observation point, Emily was filled with a rush of emotions as she watched the scene unfold. Martin emerged from his quiet workspace to comfort her, offering reassurance that the ordeal had ended and that she didn't need to live in fear any longer, as the offender was now in custody. A wave of immense relief washed over Emily. The subsequent week marked the onset of the court proceedings against the perpetrator, with Martin being a vital witness to aid the prosecution. His account, based on his direct experiences, played a pivotal role in creating a robust argument against the offender. Once found guilty, the erstwhile prosperous businessman traded his luxurious attire for a simple orange prison outfit. As his lengthy sentence commenced, Emily felt a weight lift off her, and she could finally reveal the horrifying episodes at the clinic to her loved ones. Her husband and kids opened their arms and hearts to Martin, expressing their immense appreciation for his crucial part in resolving the situation. To demonstrate their gratitude, they welcomed Martin as a crucial part of their family, expressing a combined resolution to protect their friend Martin from any trouble. The family proactively worked towards giving him a fresh start. They assisted him in securing an unpretentious cleaning position at the clinic that, irrespective of its simplicity, gave him a steady source of income and the ability to tend to his beloved pet dog. Moreover, they set him up in a cozy apartment above the clinic. Grateful and content, Martin agreed to the arrangement, glad to pay his rent to a friend and appreciative of the sense of stability it offered. Owing to his willingness to help a person in need, there was a significant improvement in Martin's life circumstances. This chain of events not only gifted him a fresh lease on life, but also gave him the companionship and support of an entire community. Do you have any reflections on the story we shared today? Share them with us in the comments section. We are keen to know your viewpoints. Don't miss out on the previous video. Click now on the banner to the right. See you next time.